Imagine waking up in a hospital, not being able to talk or move, and you have no idea why you're even there in the first place. You're completely paralyzed. There's no family by your side holding your hand. You notice nurses walking around the room, but you can't get their attention, and you're left just wondering, what happened? What led me to this place? Then try to conceive for just a moment, being told that you've been in a coma since the year before, and you can't remember a single thing. This is what happened to me. I'm going to answer a question that many wonder about today. Do miracles actually still happen? With over 80 medical problems spanning over a 5-month period in hospital, many of them life-threatening, it's a true miracle that I'm actually here to tell this story. If we haven't met before, my name is Judah and I create videos to motivate and inspire other Christians to grow in their faith. Well, I'm proof that miracles do actually happen. And I think you're going to agree with me by the end of this video. Let's take a stroll back to December 17, 2021, when all this began. I live in Melbourne, Australia, which became infamous for being the most locked down city in the world during that awful time that we all remember. We'd just come back from a beach holiday and my whole family had become ill with what would turn out to be what everyone else had at the time. I'd forgotten to keep up my fluids, so I felt very weak. I don't remember collapsing, but this is what actually happened. The next thing I remember, I was in hospital. And in the following days, my health began to deteriorate. First, I had kidney failure, and then I ended up with a series of other problems, like hospital-acquired pneumonia. The doctor said that my body was working too hard and that I needed to rest, and this is when they first suggested putting me into an induced coma. I texted my wife and told her of the situation. I felt so worried because I'd heard about all the people that had suffered the same thing, and they ended up passing away. I even said this to one of the doctors. As it turns out, that while I was in a coma, we lost 2 family friends after going through the same protocols that I did. One morning, a team of doctors invaded my room and they said that we need to put you into a coma immediately. It was better to do it now than to wait until there was an emergency. They didn't let me speak to my wife, and my wife also asked to speak to me, which they said there was no time left. This was a nightmare, trying to make this decision on my own without speaking to my wife first. The team was already there waiting to perform this procedure, so I agreed. This is when my worst nightmare was about to begin. Days later, Jen received a dreaded phone call. I had deteriorated beyond what the hospital could cope with. They called in a team of doctors from a big hospital who came to assess me to see if I was suitable to be a recipient for life-saving medical intervention. This would be my only hope of survival. It turns out that I was a good recipient. They decided to put me on a machine called ECMO, and the team of doctors travelled with me to the big hospital in a special type of ambulance. In the 2 months that I was in a coma, my body fought off many life-threatening illnesses and problems. In 11,000 pages of hospital notes, there was a large list, and these included multiple organ failure, pneumonia, sepsis, pulmonary edema, deep vein thrombosis, necrosis, pancreatitis, and many, many more. Jen spent a very long 2 months just waiting to hear good news. But there was nothing but bad news. On top of all this, they were concerned that I'd have brain damage, and they did some MRIs, but they were inconclusive. During all this time, Jen couldn't even visit me due to hospital protocols. On January 15, which also just happens to be my birthday, the worst news came in. Jen received a phone call.
It started to sort of really struggle today. It's showing signs of being at risk and that it could get worse, and we could then struggle to support him.
I'd always had this strange idea that I might die on my birthday, and here I was, in a coma, and I had no idea that this was a possibility. Jen prayed fervently through the night, and God answered her prayer. But I wasn't out of the woods yet. I remained in a coma for a whole extra month. February 18 was a special day for me, even though it was the hardest day of my life. This would be the first day that I was conscious. I have a memory of Jen after I woke. She appeared on a screen in front of me. She'd been able to watch me on the screen for most of the time that I was in a coma. She tried to reassure me that everything was fine, but I still had no idea what happened. The doctors were about to reveal some major news that would impact the rest of my life. I'll talk about that shortly. At this moment, I couldn't really understand what was going on, and I had no family there to support me, to hold my hand. Imagine just being hooked up to these machines that you could hear beeping behind you, and not knowing whether you'd actually fully recover. That was the situation I was in. I was even told that they weren't sure if I'd even walk again, or what my recovery would even look like. And then my family broke the bad news. I had actually been in a coma for 2 months since the previous year. I was utterly shocked. 2 months? Where had that time gone? I was told I'd been in a coma for 4 days. I wanted to call my family members, but I couldn't even hold my phone. The nurse tried to help me, but I couldn't even remember how to use the address book. Here I was like a newborn baby again. I was vulnerable and reliant on total strangers who I didn't even know. All I could do was pray and hope. I was told that people around the world had been praying for me, all the way from Australia to Jerusalem. My family would pray every single night. They would hold 2-hour prayer vigils. They were all praying for a miracle. Most of the miracles that happened took place while I was actually sleeping, but a big one took place after I woke. Out of nowhere, a doctor delivered some awful news. Up until this time, the doctor said that my kidneys would work again, but all of a sudden, they came and said to me that they were going to have to do a kidney transplant, and that I'd have to remain on dialysis until that happened. When they left the room, I felt stunned. I called Jen. All we could do is pray, and I thought, Lord, surely you'll deliver me out of this too. Did you bring me this far for me just to end up in this place? After Jen and I prayed, what happened next shocked the doctors. After telling me there was 0 chance that my kidneys would be restored, they started working again. In fact, my results were so good that my kidneys were like a 20-year-old's. The doctor said that she rarely got to deliver such good news. And she wasn't the only one. One doctor came in and visited me, and she said that she had been looking after me during the time that I was in a coma. She noted that she was an atheist, but after having seen my recovery, she now believed in a higher power. If there was ever proof that a miracle took place, it's an atheist doctor who proclaimed it. I still couldn't walk at this stage, but I was taking baby steps and even feeding myself. I felt like things were getting better, but little did I know that I was about to face another setback. I'll discuss this at the end of the video, so keep watching. We read in the Bible how Jesus healed many people, even a man who was paralyzed. I remember thinking, surely the Lord will do this for me as well. My wife prayed Psalm 41:3 over me. The Lord sustains them on their sickbed and restores them from their bed of illness. We absolutely believed this would happen to me in every way. I spent much of my time praying and listening to worship music. My loved ones were calling me up and giving me scriptures to hold on to at that time as well. We all need encouragement when we're facing a trial, don't we? I'm making a special video at the moment that talks about faith through the storm. How to hold on to Jesus when the very worst things are happening to you. So make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss out on seeing that video. During my time of recovery, my wife Jen produced a documentary called On a Knife's Edge, where she talks about my ordeal and my miracle. She has won over 20 awards for this film, and her film was even featured on Capitol Hill in Washington. This is another miracle. Who would ever thought she'd make a film about what happened to me? And not only that, she goes on to receive such great recognition. Her documentary uncovers the truth about the hospital protocols that many medical experts believe led to my sudden decline. After leaving the hospital, I headed to rehab, and everything looked like it was moving in the right direction. I was working hard with the rehab team when suddenly I started to feel really ill. Another medical emergency required me to be rushed back to hospital yet again. I was so heartbroken and I cried out to the Lord, Lord, what's going on? Not again. This was really serious. Watch Jen's film if you want to find out what happens next, and don't forget to hit like if you enjoyed this video. I'll see you over there.